all the marvelous contents of the universe to the Buddha as a request for the teaching. Okay, let's go.
Sajipuki Jukshin Metok Tramri Rablingji Nigeden Padi Sangye Jindu Mikte ulwa idro kunamdak jingla chöpashok. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need.
Okay. All right, everybody. Okay, good. So what we're doing is describing this entire path to enlightenment, okay? So we're going to sing this little prayer now, this reminding ourselves of our refuge in the Buddha, and secondly, our motivation or our reason for listening to these teachings, this entire path, one step at a time, that culminates in becoming a Buddha. Why are we doing it? So we can become a Buddha. Why? Well, it's our natural potential anyway, but why is because we're driven by compassion, the wish to help others, because everybody's in the same boat, everybody's suffering. So thinking this is why we're here listening to these teachings, to find the methods that we can use to develop our own potential so we can help others. So we take refuge, we rely upon, until we're enlightened, we rely upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the virtuous karma of listening to these teachings, may we become a Buddha, to benefit all suffering sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Sokye Chognam La, Chanchu Badu Dagni Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyen Gepe Sonam Ki, Drola Penche Sangye, Drupa Shog. Sangye Chodan Sokye Chognam La, Chanchu Badu Dagni Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyen Gepe Sonam Ki, Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Shog. Okay. Okay. So far then, we have been talking about, we've been describing this path. And what the path is, it's, you know, a path is instructions. If you're on a path to becoming an architect, you know, or the path to become, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just cut something off. I did the wrong thing. Hang on a second. There we go. Hang on. So it's steps, you know, steps on a path. So we don't call that. If you study music, you don't say you're on a path to becoming Bach. It sounds very dramatic, but that's the term they use in Tibetan, lam rim, you know, but it's a course basically. And when you study a course, you internalize certain information. You're putting into your mind new information, you know, like musical information, mathematical information, architectural information. You've got to squeeze your brain, you've got to learn all sorts of new theories. Well, it's exactly the same here. What we're doing is looking at the Buddha's view of the universe. I think we're so used to thinking of Buddhism as being some kind of, it's mindfulness, it's meditation. You sit down and something mysterious happens. That's a very cliched idea, I think, we have of Buddhism. But basically Buddhism is a worldview. So it's a coherent view of the universe, what it is, where it comes from, you know, what is happiness, what is suffering. And the purpose of listening to all that is so that because Buddha is saying that this is the view, this is his view of reality. This is a really important point. I say it, but I want to keep saying it. If you listen to Jesus Christ, he's telling you his view of the universe. If you listen to Islam, it's that view of the universe. If you listen to Lenin or Marx, it's that view of the universe. If you listen to a fundamentalist Buddhist, a fundamentalist somebody or other here and there, everybody's got their view of the universe. If you listen to Australian Aboriginals, they've got such an abstract view of the universe. I can't even understand it, you know. We're humans. We have thoughts. And so we come up with interpretations, don't we, of the universe, of the world. We call it philosophy, we call it religion, we call it whatever you want. And that's perfectly fine. We're humans, we have a mind, and we use our mind. So Buddha's basically saying, excuse me, that his view is the universe, of the world, the way it is, what it is, where it comes from, what our role in this is, what the mind is, what happiness is, what suffering is. So the thing that drives the Buddhist view of the universe is it's all used it's all basically implying methodology for how to stop suffering and get happy. Well, that sounds kind of interesting, thank you. I mean, if you go study philosophy in a university, you tend to think you've got a head full of interesting views, but it doesn't seem to impact upon your life. You still go home and beat up your children and beat up your husband. Doesn't seem to help us much. But that's, or you can be the most brilliant mathematician on the planet or the best artist on the planet. But it doesn't inform you. It doesn't mean you'll get any happier, and it doesn't mean you'll get any kinder. But the Buddhist view is very clear. It is a method of ethics. It's a method of how to get happy and stop suffering. And crucially, it's a method of how to get wisdom and stop ignorance. And they all come to the same thing. So for Buddhism, the method to get happy is to get wisdom. The method to get happy is to cut from the mind the misconceptions about how things are. So that's why a person will be entering into the path of Buddhism, because you've agreed, because you've checked up on the Buddha, you've checked up on the practitioners of Buddhism, and you've decided you'd like to make that your working model for the world. I mean, that's really what being a Buddhist means. And to the degree that you want to, you can take 1% of Buddhism if you like, or you can take the 100%. It's up to you. So here we're dealing with the 100%. We're dealing with this way of presenting Buddha's viewpoints, epistemology, ethics, philosophy, psychology. It's a way of presenting the Buddha's view of the universe in order for us to internalize it, in order for us to remove from the mind the misconceptions about the way the world is, in order to get into sync with the way the world is, in order to get happy, in order to get wisdom. I mean, really, that's it. And that what it ends up being is a Buddha. So we're listening to Buddha's take on the universe. And he says, do not just swallow it whole. Don't just blindly believe it. That's intellectual laziness. It's superstition, basically. You've got to prove what he says is true. Just like you would with mathematics or botany. You don't just believe what any idiot tells you about gardens. You've got to prove it to be true by doing it. Same here. Exactly. So that's what we're doing here, okay? So we're taking the different points from Buddhist philosophy as presented in this packaging known as the Lam Rim, which is a presentation of Buddhist teachings in an incremental, gradual, progressive way, progressive and incremental according to the capacity of the disciple. So the very first point we started with I went back and forth, is that, that this mind of ours can turn into the mind of a Buddha. So if that's true, we would know what the mind is. We had better know. Well, it's this continuity of mental moments that's beginningless and endless, that is not the handiwork of a creator, is not the handiwork of a mother or father, is not a function of the brain, is not physical, and has this marvelous potential to be fully developed, to become a Buddha. So if that's true, we need a person to guide us. So we take Tsongkhapa's point about finding a proper teacher and knowing how to appropriately devote to that teacher in order to develop this marvelous potential. Then we start to think about, as Atisha in the 11th century got us to think about, before we even enter into the path, we then think about the preciousness of this human life that we have. So, and basically do our market research and discover that we're one of a very small percentage of extremely fortunate people, like a 0.1%, not rich, but fortunate in having a reasonable human rebirth, reasonable intelligence, reasonable health, reasonable wealth, reasonable conditions, and crucially, all of which give us the opportunity to want to go into our mind and to do this job of getting rid of suffering and getting happiness and helping others. That's pretty special. So the conclusion, the action point from thinking about this precious human rebirth is I don't want to waste it. So then we enter into the first level, the very entry-level junior school grade 1 of the path. And now Atisha and Tsongkhapa's agenda is to increase our wish not to waste this precious life. So then we listen to Buddha's extensive teachings about impermanence, but specifically impermanence of this person, which means death. And why does he want us to do this? Not just to scare us, but to give us a wake-up call to increase our wish not to waste this precious human resources we've got, this precious human world, this precious human life. And then he leads us to the next point where we increase our wake-up call not to waste this precious life when we realize that we could die at any minute. But what happens when we die? So here we look into Buddha's extensive teachings about the different realms of existence, and in particular, what he calls the lower realms. And he talks about how we can, there's not plenty of opportunities to be born in different realms of existence that would not be ideal. That would not be cool at all. So then when that increases our wish not to waste this precious life, then the next step, it leads us, well, whom can I turn to give me advice? I don't want that kind of suffering. So now we turn to relying upon the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. We discussed that briefly, relying upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and on the Sangha. And then if you decided in your path, you'd formalize that refuge and you would take refuge. You'd become a Buddhist. There's a formal way of becoming a Buddhist. You rely upon, you formalize that reliance on the Buddha, his teachings, and the Sangha. So now we start practicing. Now we begin to practice. This is the end. This is the culmination of this first scope of practice, or junior school, starting with impermanence. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. We now start to practice. We now start to put our money where our mouth is. We now start to take Buddha's medicine. So now what do? We abide by the laws of karma. This is actually, we've talked a bit about it. We'll go into more detail now. That's the point. Okay. This is the fundamentals of Buddhist view of the entire universe and how it functions. And it's dealt with in great depth and breadth in the literature. And it's coming from these Hindus. Well before the Buddha, it was already observed that this is a natural law that runs the universe. Or a natural law, if you like, within which we all run. No one's running it. This is why the crucial difference, we have to continually remind ourselves of the crucial difference between a creator and Buddha. It's not just a small point, it's a massive point, because it implies how we listen to Buddha's teachings. If God is my creator and God is the creator of the universe, God is the boss, God made me, God made the laws, then clearly my job is to have total faith in God and to do what God said. And I'm not criticizing, but that's not the view here. Buddha does not posit a creator. In fact, he posits that there isn't a creator. He gives all his logical reasons. That's why if we study Buddhism seriously, you go into this seriously and study and looking at the logic of what the Buddha uses, which is this concept of the mind not being physical. He doesn't use a word like soul. It's beginningless and endless. And logically, it's beginningless, which is the nuttiest idea in the world to us. Why is it logical? Because the Buddha would say, and this is what karma is, it's the law of cause and effect, basically. I mean, the law of cause and effect we understand. We live according to that in the world, the physical world. The scientific world is literally the law of cause and effect. All the bodies of knowledge like botany, science, architecture, everything is a body of knowledge about particular laws of cause and effect in a particular area. And we're very good at this. Well, Buddha's expertise is happiness and suffering. That's the central point. That everybody wants to be happy, everybody doesn't want to suffer. And what Buddha's saying is that he's found the method of how to stop suffering and how to get happiness. And there's different levels of suffering and different levels of happiness. So the very first level in this entry-level junior school stages of practice is to given the Buddha's view, his observation is that every millisecond of what any sentient being thinks or says or does programs our mind just naturally. Sows seeds in the mind, and seeds in their nature will ripen eventually as fruits. And those fruits will be our future experiences. So as His Holiness often says, karma is self-creation. It's a really good way to put it. Not in a magical kind of magic wand sense, but in an evolutionary sense, that we produce ourselves. This is the essential point that Buddha's making, which really takes time to think about, because it's not how we think in our world, and it's not the view. It's sort of implied in the Christian and Muslim Islam teachings, that if you obey God's rules, you do then produce a very happy person. But here it's this natural law. Buddha says karma is a natural law, which means no one made it up, which means it simply happens. And so this is what we have to learn to think about and then to apply. So the very first level of practice then is, Buddha gets, as we discussed this, his first instructions is a series of 10 things not to do. Why? Because doing those actions, driven by delusions, they will ripen as my future suffering. And I don't want suffering. I don't want the grossest level of suffering. So then let's look more detail into karma. How it works, how we create it. And then indeed, the next level of practice is how we also purify it, So, yeah. Let me just have a look. Hang on a second, please. Just a second, people. Okay, so we talked about, yeah, I understand now from last week. So here, let's go into the, if it is true, if we decided to take on board this view that whatever I think and do and say produces the person I become. It's the simplest way to put it. It's not that complicated. If everything I think and do and say produces the person I become, then I better know what's involved in that. It's very simple. I mean, you know yourself, if you become a musician, it's exactly the same thing. You know very well that if you want to turn into a really good pianist like Bach, you know that everything you think and do in relation to music is what produces that musician. It's not surprising. So we really do understand karma. We just don't talk about it. We don't call it that, that's all. We know that what goes on in your mind in relation to music plays the major role in turning you into a good musician. You know that your fingers don't have brains of their own. Your fingers will do exactly what's in your mind. So starting with the mind, you have to internalize all the theories about music. It's pretty obvious. But we don't think that when it comes to happiness and suffering. This is the major point. When it comes to happiness and suffering, our theories are that the outside world is where the causes of happiness and suffering are. We know when it comes to being a musician, the main causes of you becoming a musician, the main causes are your mind internalizing the musical theories and then playing the piano. We know that. We know the outside world consists of a teacher, Bach, and a piano. You need those tools. But the main cause of you becoming a musician is your mind. It's really, really obvious. But I'm afraid when it comes to happiness and suffering, we have completely do not think that for 1 second. In fact, as Lama Zopa says, and this is beyond shocking, the vast majority of all humans on this planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their happiness and suffering. That's pretty demented if you think about it. We would never say that about turning yourself into a musician or an architect or a cook. You know that what goes on in your mind is the main cause. You're internalizing the correct theories. Then your hands will make the cake. Then your hands will design the building. Then your hands will play the piano. We know what goes on in the mind is the main thing, but not when it comes to happiness and suffering. It's a very fascinating point, you've got to admit. So it's not a new idea to us that what goes on in your mind is the main player. It's very fascinating. That's all Buddha's telling us. So the first level of practice, not even discussing the mind yet, is the behavior, the body and speech, the servants of the mind. Very clear. So the first level of practice is at least refrain from killing, stealing, jumping on the wrong partner, lying, bad-mouthing behind backs, abusing people, and rabbiting on about nothing. 7 little things of body and speech, then the beginnings of the mind. This is the basic instructions. But let's go into detail now. Let's go into detail. There are 4 different ways in which our karma ripens, 4 different ways in which what we say and do and think sow seeds in the mind. 4 different ways. This covers the entire universe. It's kind of interesting. It covers our entire life if you think about it. The first one is the type of rebirth we get. And this is what we discussed last week. We might find it pretty abstract to think about hell realms and God realms and these weird things we can't see. But we can all see animals. We discussed this last week. We all see animals. And so the Buddha's, like I'd mentioned, the Buddha's view of the mind, which we don't get into until the next scope, high school. The Buddha's view of the mind refers to all living beings, and we'll go into that in more detail. So here, the very first level of practice is at least control the servants of our mind. Why? Because that will at least prevent us from the grossest level of suffering, which is called the suffering. In the Four Noble Truths, okay, well, let's use that as our basis here. We don't really study that properly until we get to high school, middle scope. But let's discuss it here. It's a very logical one. Buddha's very first teaching was called the Four Noble Truths, the 4 truths for the noble ones, the 4 facts. The 4 facts about life. And the 4 facts about life here, for the noble ones, those who realize this, are about suffering, which implies getting rid of suffering. So the first one is that there is suffering. And the first kind of, there are 3 levels. The first kind of suffering is called the suffering of suffering, which is like in-your-face suffering. It's very simple. The second one, the second one is called the suffering of change. The third one is called all-pervasive suffering. There's 3 kinds of suffering. So in terms of the first one, the first scope of the Lam Rim, this is the methods we use to prevent the suffering of suffering. When we go to high school, the middle scope, they're the methods we use to stop the suffering of change. And when we finally get to the great scope, and we get to the 6 perfections, and we start to realize emptiness, that's when we cut all pervasive suffering. So the whole Lam Rim is structured in terms of the methods to get rid of the different levels of suffering. It's just a way of putting it, okay? So that we're dealing here with karma, we're dealing mainly with preventing the grossest levels of suffering. So the grossest level of suffering is called the suffering of suffering. And this is what we in the world think of exclusively as suffering. It's a simple way to put it. It's when the bad things happen. Now, in terms of the entire samsaric universe, the universe is called samsara, all the realms of existence. But the suffering of suffering for the Buddha, from the big picture point of view, he's referring to what he calls the lower realms, the animals, which is a predominance of the root delusion, ignorance. Then the spirits, all the spirits, the predominance of the delusion called attachment. And then the hell realms, the predominance of the third root delusion called anger, speaking roughly. So that's the suffering of suffering. But there's another way of characterizing the suffering of suffering, and that is to say the suffering experiences we have in this human life. So we'll forget the lower realms, and now let's look into this life and see what we mean by the suffering of suffering. And this is what the world means. It's when the bad things happen. It's very simple. When you have a headache, when your husband leaves you, when you get tortured, from the most mild experiences of small bad things happening to the most intensely painful bad things happening. That's what here, this is the suffering of suffering. Now, we all know instinctively, and so do the ants and the monkeys, that we don't want that, thank you. So here then, at this first level of understanding karma, at this junior school level, understanding karma is about how to prevent that kind of suffering. And how you prevent, first of all, you have to, if you've got a problem, you first have to establish clearly the problem, don't you? You have to identify exactly the problem. But the next step is, and this is the second noble truth, you have to identify the causes of that problem. You think about this. And once you've identified the causes, I swear to you, you've now found the solution. That implies the solution. If you can't first identify the problem exactly, and then you can't identify the cause, you will never, ever, ever find the solution. So that's the Four Noble Truths. The first is identifying that there is suffering, and we're just looking at the first of the 3 kinds. That's what's dealt with in the lower scope, where we are now. That is, we want to try and locate this called the suffering of suffering. That's when the bad things happen. And that's what we all agree on. We don't want those, thank you. But to get really clear about how to stop that suffering, at least in the future, we got to identify the causes. You can't stress this enough. It's so logical. So what are the causes? Well, that's the second noble truth. Well, what are the causes? Well, there are 2, as far as the Buddha is concerned. He's so clear. It's so simple. It's like embarrassingly simple. We can't even hear it. We just hear it as religion, you know. He's talking practically. He says, honey children, honey child, babies, sweetie pies, there are 2 main causes of suffering. It's so uncomplicated. That's why we just think it as religion, you know. In reality, if everything is cause and effect, which of course everything is, as Buddha is telling us, there are hundreds of things that have to come together just to produce anything. I mean, even a flower, you know, many conditions have to come together. The earth, you know, the decent soil, the character of the soil, the right amount of light, the position, you know, the warmth, the moisture. Now, the crucial one is the seed, though, isn't it? You can have the best earth in the planet, the best warmth, the best everything, but no seed. When you wait 4 million years, you won't get a flower. You can have the best seed in the world, a perfect rose seed, but not have the earth, not have the water, not have the warmth. In other words, not have the secondary conditions. You can wait 1 million years and you'll never get a flower. This is already proving interdependence. So you have to have a series of conditions to come together, don't you, to produce a flower. It's hardly rocket science. We call it science. a computer. Everything you can think of is the product of hundreds, sometimes thousands of components all coming together, put together properly, will produce something. Guess what? We know that. It's called science. Well, Buddha's expertise here is what produces a moment of suffering, and indeed, by implication, what produces a moment of happiness. It's very technical. So, in the second noble truth, Buddha narrows down to two main causes of what we're discussing here. The first kind of suffering, the suffering of suffering. We'll discuss the next two later when we get to high school, middle scope. The first kind of suffering, we know right now. We know, if we look into our lives, I know I don't like getting killed. I don't want to be raped, tortured, poor, sick, have people be mean to me, not, lie to me. Look at all the ways we suffer in daily life. Forget about the lower realms, okay? Forget about those. We all know this one. We know the suffering we have in our life is in relation to others most of the time, or the body gets sick, bad things happen, people don't believe you, you get lied to, stolen from, people cheat you. We're not discussing the subtle levels of suffering yet, which are our mind itself. That goes to this next level. We're just looking at the obvious level. We all know absolute certainty, we don't want those kinds of suffering. So the next question we have to ask is, well, I wonder what causes it. This is the part that's difficult for us, because if I've got I'm in a relationship with Talia and I'm saying, hello, Talia, how are you, darling? And she asks me a question and I know I've got the right answer, but she just doesn't believe me. We know how painful that is. Or even worse, she thinks I'm lying. Can you imagine? Look at the suffering we have in our friends and our family and at work. People don't like us. People don't believe us. People cheat us. This is how we suffer most of our lives. Well, this is called the suffering of suffering. This is when the bad things happen. Or when you get sick. So obviously, if you're trying to be a Buddhist, first thing is you establish yep, I know that one. I tick the box. That suffering I can recognize. And now I've got it, and I know I don't want it. That's the next step. I don't want this suffering. Okay, I've got it now, but how can I prevent it for the future? That's the learning. I know I don't like getting a headache. So, what's the cause? We do in normal life, I'm saying, in ordinary medical terms. You've got to locate the cause. So here we're talking in the Buddhist view, from the big picture point of view of the causes. Because Buddha's got his own take on what are the causes of this type of suffering. What are the causes of a person not believing me? What are the causes of me getting a headache? What are the causes of me dying young? What are the causes of me, anything that goes wrong in our lives? And this is Buddha's view, the big picture view, okay? So this is the second noble truth. There are causes, sweetie pies, of your suffering. And we can, by implication, realize there are also causes of our happiness, because it's the same logic. So there are two main, he identifies two main causes. One is called action, or the word karma. And then one is called delusion, or the mind, the neurotic parts of the mind. So those second causes, the delusions, we deal with in the middle scope, in high school. We're not getting there yet. We're now dealing with junior school in the culmination of the first scope of junior school. It's abide by the laws of karma. And this is only about the first cause. There are two causes of suffering, karma and then delusions. Delusions we'll deal with later. So let's just look at the grosser level, which is the karma. What that means, so we have to learn the law of karma. That's it. And here we're dealing with the body and the speech. We're not dealing with the mind yet. So the first level of practice is the solution to abide by the laws of karma for the Buddha, is the solution to the first kind of suffering. It's a solution to stop the future cause, the results called the suffering of suffering. Just like if you don't want a headache. And I always like the idea of the homeopaths. You go to the health stores and the homeopaths are very organized. They've got all the diseases listed from A to Z, and all the medicines are listed from A to Z. It's very practical. So you look up A for arthritis. Oh, there we go. And then it goes arnica. Okay, they're both A. How fortunate. So I'll go buy my arnica. Very practical. Well, that's what Buddha's doing here. So he lists, he lists seven little things. There's a list of 10, but forget the last 3. The first 7 are 7 little things that he recommends to not do. It's like a doctor who say, don't eat this food and don't eat this and don't eat that. There's no do this and do that yet. There's merely don't this and don't that. There are 7 little don'ts. And each of those don'ts is his recommendation to stop a certain type of future suffering, just like the homeopath. You know, so the first one is don't kill. Excuse me, Buddha, why not? What will that solve? What's that medicine for? Well, honey child, guess what? There are 4 results from all of these actions. There are 4 results. Every action has 4 results. So let's look at the 4 results that we want to realize we don't want. So and these are 4 results, not just the suffering of suffering, the 4 results. The first one is a type of rebirth. That's a harder one for us to get. The first result of a negative action, and indeed a positive one, is a type of rebirth. So let's just take the simple first instruction Buddha gives, don't kill. Why not, Buddha? Because that'll stop you from the future life. That'll stop you from getting a lower realm future life. That'll stop you from being born as an animal or a spirit or a hell being. That's the first one. That'll stop you from getting that. And what it will give you is a human body. So an accumulation of lots of delicious, rich, intentional, non-killing karmic seeds dropped into your little bank vault of karmic seeds, because everything you think and do and say leaves seeds in your mind. They're all sort of logical, you know, leave seeds in your mind. And so one of the results of not killing is you won't get that kind of rebirth, but you will get a human rebirth. So the main cause of just getting a human rebirth is an accumulation of strong, intentional, non-killing actions, especially, as Lama Zopa says, practiced in the framework of living in vows of not killing. And we'll go into this. This is a crucial piece of practice. The next thing that not killing will prevent you from experiencing in the future, excuse me, the next thing that Buddha suggests, the next result of not killing, there are 4 results to all actions. First one is the lower realm rebirth. Don't want that. So then what? But I do want a human birth. Fantastic. So don't kill. First result. The second result of not killing would be that you will wake up in this life with no thought to kill. The second way that karma ripens is a tendency similar to the cause. That's what they call it. A tendency similar to the cause. So one of the karmic results of the habit of non-killing is you wake up in this life with no habit to kill. I mean, what a miracle. Look at the world. Look at the world. I'd think majority of humans, first of all, they got the first kind of the result of non-killing, because you don't get all these 4 at the same time. So look at the 7 billion humans, however many it is, each one of them at the time of their past death, not more than a few weeks before their consciousness found its way, programmed by their mind of non-killing, not more than a few weeks before their mind found its way to their present mother's human fallopian tube, where it joined the egg and sperm of the mummy and daddy. Not more than a few weeks before that, they were dying. And then in their mind, there could have been an ant or a rat or a kangaroo. And one of their many virtuous karmic seeds of non-killing, miraculously, but although not miraculously, was triggered. And that caused them, programmed them then to go to a human mummy. They got that rebirth. But they've got another bank vault in their mind of tendencies to do things. So in this life, and look at the majority of humans have a tendency to kill, some more than others. But we don't ever tend to think of the creatures, because I was taught as a Catholic that God made animals for our benefit. They don't have a soul. That's why in our scientific world, we also don't value creatures. You know, it's just a fact. We don't value the cockroaches or the mosquitoes. We'll slaughter them, you know. So most humans have got the human body as a result of the one karma of not killing, but another way that karma of non-killing ripens is as a tendency. But they've got the tendency to kill. Look at us in this world. This is a tragedy. So one of the ways karma ripens is as a tendency to keep doing it. I mean, look at the world. So that means your personality traits. Look into your mind, see your tendencies. And that's what we get to high school. That's where we start to really look into our mind. We're not doing that yet. So the second way your karma ripens, if the reason Buddha says don't kill First, because you don't want a future suffering rebirth. Second, because you don't want to wake up in even a human life with a tendency to kill. Very simple. And this is the logic of it. Of course, we can't prove this yet. We're not clairvoyant. But we're taking Buddha's teachings as a working hypothesis, aren't we? But our trouble here is we find it very hard to listen to karma, because what we do with this is we use karma as a big stick to brutalize ourselves. We hear it as blame, bad, punishment. This is our biggest tragedy in the Western culture. We hear it as terrible punishment. We hear it as, oh my God, I'm the blame. I'm the bad person, you know. This is the worst crime against ourselves. And this really takes time to change, you know. The third reason Buddha says don't kill, because the third way not killing will ripen in the future, is you won't get killed and you won't die young. Now look at the opposite. Look at the world. Look at the humans, again, who won the lottery and got a human body as a result of the first way that karma ripens. They won the lottery and got a human body, but they've got a bank vault. And maybe they even have a tendency not to kill. That's like a miracle. That's the main one. But maybe they got the third one of killing. They die young. I mean, you know, look at people who die young or get killed. They're the two. This third kind of karma is called experiences similar to the cause. The second one is called tendencies similar to the cause. The first is the fully ripened result, the type of rebirth. So the third one, called the experiences similar to the cause. Well, the experience similar to the cause of conscious, intentional, non-killing is that you won't get killed and you won't die young. Now look at the world. I mean, start with fetuses. We never think this. We don't do this as a survey. Think about it. I think if you did some research, probably more humans win the lottery and get a human birth, get a human mother, get a human feet, get a human, you know, a human womb, die before they're even born than those who are born. Think about this. That person, I always use my example of an abortion. I had an abortion when I was 23 in England. I was a hippie. It was 1968. I remember I was in London and I felt very fortunate because the English had just agreed to make abortions free on the national health, you know. I felt so fortunate. I got pregnant. I was a hippie. And the first second I knew I was pregnant, I decided I'm going to kill. I'm not going to have a baby. You know, I didn't think I'd kill. So that's that being, that consciousness, they died a few weeks before. At the time they died, their virtuous karma of non-killing was triggered, and they created the cause to come to my human womb. So they got the first kind of karma, a human birth. They didn't get the birth yet. They got the body. So they were born into my womb. Then when I discovered that I had a baby in my womb, I didn't think of it like that. I decided I was going to have an abortion. So that means they had created the karma. The third one, they created the cause from another karma of past killing to get killed by me and to die young. When they were surely young, they were a 12-week fetus, for God's sake. That's the third way. So on the one hand, they got the human body, but they had the third kind of karma from killing, which caused them to die young and get killed. Tick the boxes, right? Now, in my case, I had the second kind of karma, which is the tendency to kill. I've never done it since, obviously not now, but I never thought of it before. Only ever happened once. I never liked to kill other creatures either. So I didn't really have a tendency to kill, but for whatever reason, the karma between me and that person ripened and I had the abortion, you know. So the third way your karma the first way your karma ripens of non-killing, get a human body. The second way non-killing would ripen is a tendency to not kill, which is pretty miraculous. The third way non-killing would ripen is you don't get killed and you don't die young. Well, every one of us right now clearly has still got petrol in that petrol tank. Here we are still breathing, you know. We haven't died yet. Pretty miraculous, pretty amazing. And so this is the point. Buddha's saying every time, for whatever experience it is in our life, the first cause is always karma. This is something to get used to, and it's very hard for us because we're so addicted to the materialist view. And karma doesn't contradict the materialist view, it just adds to it. So in other words, we think we're healthy, and it's true, not wrong to say we're still alive because we're not living in a war zone. The odds of not getting killed are far better by living in Zurich, than in living in some war zone, obviously. So we can say that is a valid cause. We can also say because we've eaten well all our lives, that's also a valid cause. But all Buddha's saying is the main cause. There are main causes and secondary causes. So the main cause of the flower is the seed. The secondary cause is the earth and the water and the moisture. So all these coming together beautifully. So same here. The secondary cause of my getting a good human body is my mother and father with decent human bodies. They're clearly a cause. If they hadn't hopped into bed, I would not have got a human body. They're a hugely vital cause. But unlike the materialist view, they didn't create me. Who's the main cause of that? Me, my past non-killing, programmed in my mind before I even died, maybe 7-8 weeks beforehand. I am the main cause of how come I get a human body. Second way that non-killing ripens, I am the main cause of how come I have got a tendency in my mind not to kill. My mother might have taught me that, but if I didn't have the tendency in my mind, her teaching wouldn't help. The main cause of my wish not to kill is my past karma of not killing. The third one, the experience similar to the cause. The main cause of my not being dead yet. Secondary causes, yes, good food, good bones, good genes. Yes, all of this, no argument. But the main cause is my past non-killing. The fourth way that our karma ripens, and this is the very way the physical world impacts upon us. We're all born in an environment, aren't we? We have a body. We have tendencies in that mind. We have experiences at the hands of others, but we don't float in the sky. We have a physical world that we occupy. Well, even the way the physical world impacts upon us, main cause of that, our past actions. So we are literally the creators as far as Buddha is concerned. They don't use that word in the text, but as His Holiness says, he's extrapolating, for our minds. It's like self-creation. That's literally true. But wow, it takes time for us to think this, really takes time. And how can you think it if you don't study it? And these four things I think are so powerful to think about. It explains the entirety of your daily life, the way the physical world. So what's the result of non-killing in the environmental karma? It's called environmental karma. The result of non-killing is that the water, the food, the air, the physical world nourishes you and doesn't harm you. Look at the world now. This is interesting. And now with COVID-19, there's two ways our past killing karma is ripening in the present. One is experiences similar to the cause. So every person right now, let's just discuss COVID-19 alone. We can see that millions of people, is it the whole world? I don't know, millions, I suppose, I don't know, have died from COVID-19. So that's the direct result, main cause for those people, whether they're babies or 97-year-olds, is their past killing karma called experience similar to the cause of their past killing that they now die. Well, just dying is dying, but dying young, let's say. But getting sick, that's environmental karma. Getting sick or getting sick, that's all the people who get sick. And because the physical world, and this is what's fascinating to me now with COVID-19. What is it in the physical world right now that causes us to get COVID-19? Contact with another human being. So we can't even touch each other anymore. I always joke, but it's true. In Queensland, in Australia, there's this type of toad that they brought in for some reason in the sugarcane, in the sugarcane industry in Queensland. I forget the exact story. They brought in this creature that kills something or other. But in the end, this toad is called a cane toad. It's so poisonous. People in Queensland loathe these creatures because any animal who eats a cane toad will die an agonizing death. Well, it's like even now, we humans can't even touch each other. We're not even allowed to kiss or touch because so some humans, by contact with each other, we will die. That's pretty heavy karma. That's environmental karma. So the environment for you includes other human beings, doesn't it? So it's like, some people are poison. Some people are poison to you. You can't even touch each other. That's environmental karma of the physical world itself poisons you, including the humans in it, And then dying yourself, or getting sick, that's environmental karma of killing. So if we understand these 4 ways that karma ripens: 1, your type of rebirth; 2, your mental tendencies; 3, your experiences, mostly at the hands of others; and 4, the very physical world, how it impacts upon you. So the 4 results of killing, the 4 results of not killing: 1, you get a human body, for example. It's not that you just don't get an animal birth, but you do get a human one. Second result of non-killing is you've got the tendency, and you wake up in this life, or you discover it pretty soon, like some of us who become Buddhist, we've decided not to kill. That means the tendency has to be in our mind. Has to be in our mind, you know. And then we take the vow. That's the result of non-killing. This is the most important one, and I'll explain why. The third result of non-killing is that you won't get killed and you won't die young. The third result of non-killing: experience similar to the cause. The fourth environmental result of non-killing is that you remain fat and healthy and don't get sick, and you don't get impacted by the negative things in the outside world. Whatever you eat nourishes you. I always quote Warren Buffett. This is a very funny one. I love this story. This is mega rich American fellow. He's close to 90. And he's always renowned for being a very down-to-earth, humble fellow, you know, incidental. That's another separate story. I'm talking specifically about killing karma here, non-killing karma. Well, I read his biography. He's famous for making bucket loads of dollars. He's just got this ability to make masses of dollars, which is also that's a result of his generosity. But the one about food is very interesting. His daughter, I read his biography. His daughter said, "I've never seen water pass his lips. He's got the crummiest diet in the whole world. Since he's a boy, everybody who talks about meeting him always talks about his diet. And his diet is exclusively cheeseburgers, Coca-Cola, and vanilla ice cream. That's it. And he's 90. And he's as fit as a fiddle, as we say in English. So that's both experience similar to the cause. He hasn't died young and he doesn't get killed, and the experience similar to the cause and the environmental result, both of non-killing. So whatever he touches, whatever he eats, it nourishes him. That's environmental karma of non-killing. We can see this. We know some people who live impeccable lives with impeccable health and swim every day and never eat the wrong foods die young. It's so clear. And that's why we're confused by that, in that taking only the physical causes. So they can, in other words, the physical causes, the external world can only go so far in answering. This is a Buddha's view. You don't discount the external causes, but you add karma to the mix, you know. So there are 4 ways, again, that our karma ripens. 1, a type of rebirth. 2, a tendency to keep doing that action. 3, an experience of that action happening to you. And 4, an environmental result. And every action we could ever think of. This is a natural law for the Buddha, driven by the mind. It's just a natural law that takes care of the universe. Karma takes care, as Lama Yeshe says. It's totally fascinating. So if you're trying to be a serious Buddhist, you can't be a serious Buddhist if you don't study this, you know. It's like studying the mechanics. It's like studying math. It's like studying botany. You can love botany. You can like botany, but no one ever says, "Oh, I believe in botany." That'll never get you a garden. You've got to learn it. Same here. This is the fundamental starting point of Buddhist practice, the fundamental, and it's the first level. As Lama Zopa says, the first, most immediate practice to start this second is to stop killing. Don't kill. Don't take the ungiven. Don't jump on the wrong partner. Precisely 3 of the body, starting with these. Then 4 of speech. Don't say words that aren't true. Don't rabbit on about nothing. Don't abuse people with your language, and don't say disharmonious bad things behind your back. 7 baby actions. If we refrain from these 7 baby actions, that's Buddha's medicine that will guarantee you will not get a future human suffering, you not get a suffering rebirth, you will not have those tendencies, you will not have that experience happen to you, and you will not have an environmental result. This is Buddha's method for practice. This is it. It's technical. It's practical and technical. But because we're so addicted to the view of punishment, creators, bad, good, reward, we make it so complicated. It's totally fascinating. It just takes time, you know. So I think I need to get you to ask me some questions now about that. Questions, please.
Okay. Yes. Ariane has a question. Would you like to ask the question yourself, please?
Please do.
Hi,
Hello,
Robina.
darling.
My question is, we all die. So does that mean at some point we've killed in our past lives and it's
of course.
now ripening?
Yes, there's no result that doesn't have a cause. Yeah, eventually the karma, sometimes just eventually karma runs out. Your virtuous karma runs out. And usually in this world with these human bodies, we tend to, we know maximum probably 100 years, isn't it? So the amount of years you live is simply the amount of petrol you've got in your non-killing petrol tank. So an average normal life, we call it 60, 70, 80, you know. So yeah, the petrol just runs out.
I hate to think that I killed in my past. I don't like that.
Well, Ariane, please, excuse me. I know, but that's the first thing everybody says. We can't always.
I know.
But that's kind of naive, isn't it? If you can
take it is.
Sorry, but all we've got to do is posit the possibility. There are trillions of other beings. We've been animals countless lives, and humans countless lives, and spirits countless lives. It's a very bigger picture. Then when we take that on board, it's not so complicated. It's hardly personal.
Is there a difference then between intentional, the karma ripening, if it's intentional killing or accidental killing?
I want to go into details about that. That's the crucial thing I want to get to next.
Okay.
What are the components in place when we do an action that will determine whether or not it results as this? This is the crucial next step. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, we got two more hands. Fabio, please go ahead.
Good, Fabio. Talk to me, sweetheart. Hello there.
Yes, hello. Can I just ask, in terms of some of the diseases that we experience in life, say, for example, autoimmune diseases or genetic diseases, are these still being, can they be explained as a result of killing?
I understand. Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Fabio. It's a really good point. This is my point before was, I made the point, but let's try and go into it, that the external causes are not being contradicted by karma. So it's a bit like this. Let's say due to your past virtuous karma, the first type of karma, you create the cause due to your past non-killing, in this life, you create the cause to get a human mummy. So your mind runs like a magnet to Fabio's human mummy at the time of conception. But at the same time, you have another karma called the fourth one, which is environmental karma, due to another set of other karmic seeds, in this case killing, you create the cause to get born to a mummy who's got certain genetic tendencies. So she's got those genetic tendencies. They do play a role, but you created the cause in the first place to go to that particular body. So that's where your role is in the karma, to get to that mummy. Or you might be born to you might wake up in this life with a tendency to lie, which is the second way karma ripens. But you're also born into a life with a mummy who also lies. So we would tend to think, oh, Fabio lies because his mother lies. No, Fabio is born into this life with a tendency to lie from his own past lying, but so is his mummy. She's also born into this life with her tendency to lie. So you conveniently get born to her where you can increase your lying. Do you understand my point is? But on the other hand, you might have a tendency to lie, but your mother never tells a lie. So that proves, that you bring your own with you. So karma doesn't contradict the physical and the immediate of the parents and so on. It sort of puts in the cause, why in the first place did you get born to a poor family? Why in the first place did you get born to a rich family? Why in the first place you got born to a mummy with cancer genes or good music, whatever it might be? You're the one who created the cause in the first place to even go to that condition. You see my point? Are you sure?
Yeah, so it's a combination.
Yes, that's right, a combination. External conditions. Mm-hmm. In other words, you can have a perfect rose seed, but really bad earth, really no warmth and no moisture. Well, the rose will be a very sad rose, won't it? So there are the external conditions, the secondary conditions for the rose. That's like your family. That's like the conditions you get born in. And then the seed is your mind. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's just got to nut it out because it doesn't contradict it. It adds a crucial extra component. Do you understand?
Thank you. Yes,
good.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
That's a major one because we have to put this together, you know. So who else? Alona has a question. Yes, sweetheart.
Hello, Venerable.
Oh. Happy to see you, darling.
I have a questions about abortions.
Yes, good. Go on.
I had 3.
Yes.
And I grew up, when I was very young, and I was in a communist country, and we were taught that it's doesn't feel pain, that it's not a living thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when and I really did not have an option to have a baby.
I understand.
It was
So
just not.
I understand.
The question of what am I gonna face of implication of
Don't
that
talk like that.
action?
You don't say, what will I face? You ask, how can I fix it? If you've eaten sugar 5 years ago and you didn't know it would cause diabetes, you don't say, oh my God, I've eaten sugar for 5 years. What am I going to face? You think, well, wow, quick, how can I fix it? That's your question, isn't it? How can I fix it? That's a much better question, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you hear my point?
Yes.
Do you hear my point? Okay,
Yes.
good. Well, then, darling, this is just one rebirth. We've killed a few people in this life, but when you were a whale and you took one mouthful of one of your breakfasts in your 40-year-long life and 40 million creatures went into your mouth, that's much more killing than having a couple of abortions, isn't it? So we've all done that in countless lifetimes. And we also kill the creatures and we kill the ants. And you probably killed more cockroaches than babies, right? You probably killed more rats and ants than babies, yeah?
No.
You've never killed those creatures?
Mm.
You've never killed any creatures, ever?
Cockroaches, yeah.
Thank you very much. So you've killed a few cockroaches. Well, think
Yeah.
of them too, honey. Come on. So this is the whole point. We've got to first understand that the way karma is, and I'm going to describe the different ways karma ripens. Now, like Ariane's point, we're going to go into how we create these karmas. But then the next one, obviously, is how do we purify it? What can we do about it? How can we fix it? So we're going to get there gradually. Okay?
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Enough? Thank you, darling.
Yes.
Cover
Thank
it all.
you.
Okay, good, sweetheart. What else, people?
Yes, Basu is next.
Who is there? Who's next?
Basu,
Who? Oh, Basu. Hi, darling. Talk to me.
you need to unmute, Basu.
Good, Basu. Go.
So I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Same with the karmas. So firstly, in Buddhism, is it ever mentioned that what exactly is the karma? Is it a part of our mind?
It's a good point. I understand.
Does it controls our mind somehow? Because you say that does it controls our mind or somebody else's mind? So that's
a good
one
point.
question.
Exactly.
Second is that are we only affected in this life by our previous karma, or are we affected in this life
I understand.
also by the present karma? Because in India, there are a lot of politicians. They are brutal, rapists, murderers, but they are politicians. And I see a pleasant life like a king of them. They are doing bad things, but good things are happening.
Exactly.
And then people give the excuse, oh, this is because of their back life, previous good karmas.
Exactly.
So I do not understand the logic that if I do bad, good thing happens to me.
No, exactly. I understand that. It's not like that. This is why, first of all, it's a good point, Bashu. So the first one, let's look at what karma is. Okay. So if I say to you, what is botany? How would you answer it? Simple answer. What is botany? I asked you, what is botany, Bashu?
The study of plants.
Thank you. That's it. And so what's karma? It's a study of the human mind and how we create causes. That's it. There's no thing called karma like a big stick. It's not an alternative to punishment and reward. It's not an alternative to a creator. Don't personify it. It's just a name given to a natural law that just is what minds run within. That's what gardens are. Clever botanists, and this is a crucial point, we know that a clever person comes along, they don't invent botany and then stamp it on gardens. They use their intelligence and observe gardens and come up with what they've called the law of botany, and then they present it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's what karma is. That. I mean, the Hindus before the Buddha, obviously the Indians have always had karma, but that's how the Buddhists would say it. It's simply the term, it means action. I mean, I don't speak Sanskrit, but it's referring to the law, the natural law that runs the minds of all beings. And specifically, it plays out in terms of happiness and suffering, right? That's what karma is. It's not a part of the mind, it's what the mind does. Because the key action, and I'm going to go into this to answer Ariane's point, the key action starts with the mind, intention. I will kill. And then it all goes from there. But I'll describe that process. So the second question, this is why I'm describing first, Bashu, there are 4 ways a person's karma will ripen, and they don't all come together. So one way a person's karma ripens is they get a human body. Now, the second way, let's take, your naughty people, let's take the wicked politicians or your Mr. Hitlers or any other variation of a naughty person anywhere on the planet. Then that second way they got the human body, because there's 4 bank vaults, Bashu. There's billions of karmic seeds. We have created billions of karmic seeds. And like all natural laws, no one's running the law. It plays itself out. So one lot of those karmic seeds will ripen as a type of rebirth. So Mr. Hitler got one of those, or Mr. Hitler, whoever you want to use as the example, he's just the archetype. So he got a human mummy. That's due to some virtuous, non-killing karma ripening at the time of his past death. So we now look at Mr. Hitler and look at the difference between him and Mother Teresa, another archetype, a good, nice person. So the difference is not their body. They both got 2 legs and 2 arms. They both got a brain. Clearly, the difference is in the second way their karma ripens, which is their tendencies, their mental tendencies, their personality traits. And what are they? A bunch of habits. So what did Hitler display? What are these politicians you're talking about? What do they display? They display lying, killing, stealing. Do you understand my point? They are tendencies in their mind, and they happened to manifest in this particular human life. Do you understand what I'm saying? The third way that person's karma ripens, maybe that person's very rich. Well, that's the third way karma ripens. It's called an experience. That's due to another lot of karma in the past of their being very generous and they're not stealing. It could have been 1,000 lifetimes ago. And in this particular life, they might get rich. They might, I always use Mr. Trump as a good example. Approximately 74 million Americans adore him and 80 million Americans didn't vote for him. So it's almost even. So some people loathe Mr. Trump and some people adore Mr. Trump. Some people believe every word he says. Some people believe no words he says. So this is really from the point of view of Mr. Trump. He is experiencing the third type of karma. In the people who like him, he's got experiences similar to the cause of his past actions of being good to them, of being virtuous to them, of telling them the truth. So in this life, they believe him. But the other people, he's experiencing the past karma experience similar to his own cause of past lying, that another group of people don't believe a single word he says. This is called experience similar to the cause. But our problem is, of course, in our own lives, Bashu, we know how painful it is. Let's say at work, some person just can't stand you. Some person believes you're lying. And you might be the most honest person on the planet. And this is where it's so distressing. This happens in our families, in our organizations. And this is the karma called experiences similar to the cause. There you are with good tendencies. You have the second kind of karma called intentions or tendencies similar to the cause, to not steal, to not lie, to not harm. You're a really good person. But from another lot of karmic seeds in another lifetime, you get lied to, you get stolen from, you get abused. This is the way we major suffer in our lives. We just don't understand it. But I didn't do anything to deserve it, we say. And even that's what your question is. But they're from different karmas in different lives, Bashan. Do you understand? And when we can really distinguish the one called experiences similar to the cause, that's how you're seen and treated by others. So Mr. Trump, this is just karma. The fact that he's super famous, millions and millions of people on this planet know Mr. Trump. Some hate Mr. Trump. Some love him. And there's so many people like that we know in the world. Stalin, Lenin, anybody, famous people. They've got very powerful karma to be known by millions of people, but they've got some very good karma with some people from some past lives where he's been very good to those people, so they adore him now. And he's got some very negative karma with other people whom he has really harmed in the past, who think he is ugly and monstrous. So we can all see this in our own lives. We can see this. So when we understand that the karma you have in your own mind for your own tendencies is one type of karma, and how you're seen and treated by others is another set altogether. When we know this, we can begin to understand why things happen, and we won't go crazy. Do you understand, Bashu? This is a major point to get clear, It's very good points. Thank you so much. What else, people? Any
Yes,
other
Christian, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, Christian, talk to me.
Yes. Hello, Venerable Robina. Hi.
Hello, my dear. Happy to see you.
Happy to see you. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
My question is concerning the fourth type.
Environmental.
Environmental karma. So could you also say that everything that is created around us, even plants, the ocean, the air to breathe, is a result of our common karma?
Yes,
Just the facts.
absolutely. The point. Environmental karma is the most extensive and the most expansive because we share it. Everybody shares a certain kind of environment. In other words, a rich person and a poor person, each of them experiencing the fruits of their generosity or lack of it, both experience that same ocean, that same sky, but we can still see. So that's called collective karma, but we can still see that you might, you've got the karma to be very sick all the time. And when you eat a peanut and you will die practically. So that's your individual environmental karma from past killing, even if everybody else is nourished by peanuts, Do you understand? But environmental karma.
I'm just trying to get my head around the fact. So basically what you could say is everything, all the material world that is outside is a result really of our actions.
That's environmental karma. So talking about it in this way, this is from the Vajrayana teachings, and I find this very, very helpful. They don't talk about it like this in the sutra teachings when we first learn about Lam Rim, like we're doing now. But I find this really helpful. If we take the Vajrayana model of the universe, which is made, basically you've got billions and trillions of sentient beings, of mind streams, and then all of those, and then the matter in the world, the universe is made of matter and minds, and all matter is made of the 4 elements. They still talk about that now, even though we know we talk about modern scientific elements, different ones, but still that's the model that's used in the Vajrayana teachings, that the physical world is made of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And as His Holiness says, in the teachings they describe, this is when we describe the death process. We might go into this, we'll see how we go. But, that all minds, which are not physical, are all inextricably linked to their own set of the 4 elements. So this is the basis of Tibetan medical system. When you go to your, you've got your gross body and you've got your gross mind, your sensory consciousness and your physical body. But then you've got this subtle physical energy, which is similar to the Ayurvedic system and is similar to the Chinese system. And this is the Tibetan medical system from the Vajrayana teachings. We've got this subtle physical energy, 72,000 subtle channels going through our body, and coursing through all those channels are all these different subtle wind energies, prana. And this is the basis of Tibetan medical system. They study it 10, 12, 14 years. And all of our different states of mental consciousness, our love, our attachment, our anger, it's a very specific model. All those different states of mind, inextricably linked to their own set of their own wind energies, are coursing through all those channels. So now, as Lama Zopa said, in the Kala Chakra Tantra, they give these detailed descriptions of the intimate relationship between internal and external energy. Internal is the mind, the thoughts, the experiences in our mind, and external is those wind energies. So as Ramuje said, even just when your mind is just being angry, let's say, so not even your words, not even your actions, just you've got angry thoughts, all the different states of mind are linked to their own winds. It's just natural. You go to your Tibetan doctor, she will feel your pulses and she will feel the imbalance of certain wind energies, and she knows that's related to your anger. She can feel it. That's why you're going berserk and having, shouting and yelling and screaming, because your wind energies are berserk, and it impacts upon your anger because they're totally connected. So even as Lama Zopa says, that anger already karmically, anger continues the habit to be angry. You program your mind with anger, number 1. Number 2, because that anger is linked to certain wind energies, that pollutes the wind energies, which eventually karmically produces sickness, literally sickness in your body, literally sickness caused by the mind, and karma is the cause even of sickness and of good health. And not in long term, eventually over many lifetimes, that anger karma and that polluted wind energy manifests in the external world as the imbalance of the external world, and you get harmed by the external world. You get harmed by the polluted water, the polluted air, the food that harms you. So literally all sentient beings are the creator of the entire universe over many, 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 many lifetimes. Can you hear all that?
Thank you very much. Yeah, can you hear all of that? Yes.
What to think about.
quite a
It's all,
bit.
I'm trying to summarize it, you know. So there's no creator, and there's nothing random, and there's nothing accidental. And this is what we tend to think in our it's materialist world. We're still saying all the time we haven't found the answer to things yet, and that's fine. Well, Buddha would simply say you're not going to find the answer until you start factoring in consciousness. So, I mean, Dalai Lama is the one who's talking to all these amazing scientists. He's not being so blunt as I just said then. He doesn't say you're wrong, but he's all these amazing discussions, and they're gradually looking into the meaning of consciousness now, which is the factor that's missing as far as the Buddha is concerned in the materialist view. So it's very fascinating. But to understand this view of karma, it's a natural law. It's not random. There's nothing, if it's a natural law, it's not a possibility that any event could be random. It's impossible. And the creator of all the experiences, all the environment, all the hell realms, all the spirit realms, all the human realms, all the God realms, all the experiences, how we're seen by others, how we're treated by others, our own mind, our own tendencies, our own body, creator of all of this, each and every single individual sentient being. And sometimes we experience the collective results, and sometimes we experience individual results. We are the creators of the universe. It's not a joke to say it, it's true. You with me? So clearly, if this is true as a principle, we better learn the nuts and bolts of it, hadn't we? Better learn the principles of botany. And that's what you've got to study if we want to study Buddhism in depth. It's all there in the literature, you know. Do you understand?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any more questions?
Yes, we got 3 questions, but one's related to what we just talked about. The question is prana also mind?
No, prana is physical. Prana's got mental and physical, that's it. And the subtle physical. So there's either mental or there's physical. There's only 2 choices, mind or matter, that's it. But they're inextricably linked. You can't separate them.
Okay. And the next question is from Katerina. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Good, darling. Talk to me, Katerina.
Hello, thank you. Hello, Venerable Robina.
Yes, darling.
I have a question. I think you might have answered it already. It's about karma if it skips lives. Like when I killed in my past life, would it inevitably ripen in this life, or could it ripen in the next one as well?
It could be 1,000 lifetimes, could be 1,000,000 lifetimes ahead.
Okay.
Easily, yeah.
Okay. And does
yeah, go on.
And does it always, like killing, for example, does it always ripen in these 4 results and these 4?
This is how it works. Yeah, there's a type of rebirth, a tendency, an experience, and then the environmental. They're the 4 ways that karma ripens. Yeah, variations of all of those. They cover everything if you think about it.
And that's how that in this life I might have the tendency to kill, but not be killed, for example.
That's right, easily, exactly. Look at the number of people who live till they're 97 and they spend their lives killing, you know, absolutely. And look at the people who die young but never kill anything. So they're 2 separate tracks of karma. That I said, as I said before to Bashu, when we can understand the difference between the experiences similar to the cause, which is how you're seen and treated by others, and then the tendencies, when we can get how these are separate, then we can begin to understand why if you're a naughty person, people love you, but if you're a good person and people hate you, you know why. Because we take it personally, but I don't deserve that. I didn't do anything to deserve it, we'll say. That's why we get tortured. That's why we suffer so badly. We don't understand why a person doesn't believe us if we're telling the truth. And we don't understand why if a person's lying, someone believes them. It's even more crazy for us. But they're 2 separate tracks. It's so powerful to understand these, is my feeling. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling. What else, people?
Yes, next one's Jenny. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Hello, Robina.
Hello, sweetie. Talk to me. Hello. Talk to me. Happy to see you, darling.
How does the karma thing work with eating meat and animals being killed for meat?
I understand. It's a really good question.
My situation is my son, for health reasons, eats masses of meat. He's on a keto diet.
Yes.
I try not to eat meat. I was vegetarian for a long time. He was too. But I have to buy this meat for him and I have to cook it.
I understand, darling. Let's talk about it. It's a really good point.
How does this work for my karma?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things going on in there. You know, we should really look into, I think it's really important to look at it from the big picture point of view and look at it quite freshly. Because I think one of the interesting points is, you, like all of us, always only ever ask the question, when it comes to the broader point, surely the broader question, if you think about it, should be, what is the karma we create by using animals' bodies? Because not just eating, is it? We use them for leather belts, we use them for shoes, we use them for medicine, we use them, a million different things we know come from the suffering of animals. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
That's the bigger issue. But I find it, this is always my own personal comment, I find it quite fascinating that we only ever ask this question when it comes to whether or not we eat that flesh. I've never yet had a person ask, what's the karma of wearing leather belts? I've never had a person ask, what's the karma of using silk? I've never had a person ask, what's the karma of eating rice from a field where they had to kill millions of mice before they planted the wheat? We don't ask those questions. So I think we're very narrow-minded about it. We're very tunnel vision about it. My feeling is because we're so attached to food, we're so attached to the action of eating that it looms large for us. But not also that, of course, it's obvious that the meat industry is destroying the planet. I mean, that's pretty easy to prove, apparently. But they're all real factors. But the broader one has to be, my sense is, let's look at it from the broader point of view of the number of activities we do on this planet that depend upon the death of animals and the use of animals' bodies. And it's not just eating. Of course, eating is probably the biggest one because we're so attached to meat. It's true. And it is an industry that is destroying the planet. But when it comes to individual karma, it's a very different discussion. It's not a political issue and it's not a principle. You understand? So first of all, there's so many things to factor in. So first of all, the bigger point, it's not just when we eat meat that we misuse animals' bodies. It's just clearly not true. Look at silk. I mean, little silkworms, boiled alive so they don't break the silk when they climb out of their cocoon, so we can use the nice long pieces of silk. Look at the creatures, even this one. I always remember one Australian scientist working for the ABC in Australia, like the BBC in Britain. He talked about how this wheat field where you grow wheat, and of course, what's the wheat for? The wheat is for the vegetarians. The wheat is also used to feed the bulls for the meat eaters. But, regularly in this particular wheat field he was talking about, it must be common everywhere, they had a plague of little field mice. Millions of little field mice. He had photos of them. He said they were so cute. They sing love songs to each other. So, of course, what are you going to do before you plant your wheat? You have to slaughter the millions of field mice. But I remember even having this discussion on Facebook with some fellow, and all he said was, oh, well, you can't help that. I mean, that's just plain naive to me. The fact is, to get your bowl of nice wheat, you had to kill millions of mice. So, in other words, if we look at the bigger picture, and this is very much what the Buddhist view is, the whole universe, you could argue there's not an atom of space you will not find countless suffering sentient beings. So just by existing, by breathing, by walking, by talking, we are slaughtering many creatures. We in our culture don't value all the creatures on the road, all the bugs, I remember one Dutch guy, I Googled how many bugs die on the road from just driving cars. And I forget the research, but it was something like trillions just on the number plate. Do you understand? So we don't factor all those in when we talk about being a vegetarian or not a vegetarian. So it's a big issue because the meat industry is destroying the planet, but karmically there's way more involved. So your general point, are you getting me, Jenny?
Yes, I am.
So, darling, the point is, given all that, having this awareness, even your own body is a walking zoo. Under your armpits, apparently, is literally a little ecosystem. Your mouth is an ecosystem of billions of creatures. So we've got to look at this reality and value every single one of those sentient beings, not just the big fat ones that look like us, like the cows. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, the suffering, you can't argue the suffering is beyond shocking. There's no question about that. But it's not just in the killing of animals that animals suffer. It's important to look at the bigger picture, my feeling is. Then what do we do? Then almost in a sense, you feel, what choice do I have? I can't even live. I can't even walk. I'm trying to kill. I might as well kill myself. No, we're given the fact that we're living in this samsaric suffering. This is what Buddha is saying. What are we going to do? Start becoming conscious. Start becoming aware. Start at least first, from our own point of view, make a decision. I will never consciously kill. I will never consciously lie or steal or harm or kill. That's your first step. This is what we're discussing here. Entry-level junior school grade 1 practice. At least intentionally decide not to kill. And we haven't even gone into that properly yet. Then you also decide, I'm going to try and do whatever I can that least harms sentient beings. It's not a principle, you know, it's you do what you can. So there's your boy. He's got certain illness. But he doesn't have a wish to kill. He's not a brutal person. He's not terrorizing people. Yes, those animals had to die. Well, so did those millions of little field mice when you ate your holy wheat. So, you know, it's got to be a bigger picture. So then you, with your son, you got to cook it. Well, then say a mantra, sweetheart, and bless the creature. At least say a mantra, blow on that meat. And Lama Zopa says, even a bone that's 1,000 years old, if you blow a mantra, which blesses your mouth, that then blesses that bone and the creature, the consciousness, wherever it is now, 1,000 lives later, it will get the benefit. So you've got to look at each individual situation. There's so many variations to it all. It's not some absolute, you do or don't eat meat, you know, it's way more than that. Because karma is what you think every second, what you do every second. So you do your best not to harm, and you have a pure motivation. And you understand what I'm saying? It's a much bigger issue.
Yes, and also purification at night, Vajrasattva.
Well, of course, all of this, which I'm
like
getting to in a minute. We'll probably have to get to that next week. That's when we're discussing the general ideas about how karma ripens. Now we're going to go into how we create the karma. What are the components involved? That's Ariane's question. And then we have to go how we purify karma, which was Alona's question. And that'll probably follow over into next week. This is huge. We can spend the whole 6 weeks on karma, you know, it's so massive a point. And it's a major one. And it's very nuanced. It's more nuanced than we tend to think, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Robina. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
So Alessia has a question. Yes, sweetheart. Yes, Alessia.
Yes, thank you, Venerable. Because each of us individually, we create every little detail of the universe the way we experience it. And also all the beings that we encounter in the world, they are, from the point of view of our experience, our karmic appearances.
Yes, exactly.
So, so does this mean that we all create also the Hitlers and the Mother Teresas just to remain in the archetypes? And so, when we think of a Hitler or a Mother Teresa, they are also being created by each other in a way. So,
okay, I hear your point. That's a good point. Yeah, okay, let's look at it. Okay. So first of all, you've got all the individual beings, each of us playing out our own past actions, experiencing a type of rebirth, a tendency, an experience, and an environmental result. That's clear first point, isn't it? Each of us individually experiencing our own. That's very clear. Where's Alessia gone? The pictures keep moving. Oh, there she is. Where is Alessia?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm here.
I can see you. Okay,
yes.
That's the first point. Then we see we're very social creatures. We live in society. We live among other people. This is where our own personal experiences similar to the cause play out. So you can be born into you can be born with a tendency to be kind, loving, generous, but have the karma to be born in a war zone where you're raped and abused and lied to and stolen from. Or you could be born with a tendency to lie and steal and kill, but be born in a beautiful environment with lovely environment and everybody adores you. So these are the differences, but the experience is similar to the causes. That's where the collective karma plays out. So that's the whole world is our collective karma. So now when Lama Zopa says, everything is our own karmic appearance. So from the point of view of a man called Hitler, he is who he is due to his past actions. He is impacting upon all the millions of people, let's say the Jews and the Gypsies in the 1940s in Germany, whatever. And that was their experiences similar to the cause of their own past torturing, their own past killing, their own past harming. That was very personal for them. But you might live down the road and you never get impacted by Hitler, but you see him every day, but you don't get harmed by him. Well, that in a sense, that's your environment. That's also your experience. That's your environmental result. He is part of your environment. You see him every day. So do you understand what I'm trying to say? But he doesn't impact directly on you. So everything we see, if you're born in a war zone, but you don't get killed and nobody kills you, you're not having the experience similar to the cause of past killing, but you've got the experience similar to the cause of past harming, and past abuse, where you're you're seeing it every day. You're seeing it out there. It's like the flowers and the veggies in your garden. It's called abusive people, or called kind people, or called peaceful people. Sometimes they can impact, if they impact directly upon us, you could say that's one way karma ripens. But another, the environment, it might be very distant from you. You mightn't touch your life, but you see it every day because you're living next door to it or something. So everything is your own karmic appearance. We don't create Hitler, but we create the cause to hear and see a person like Hitler. We create the cause, if we're born in a war zone, we mightn't get killed. We create the cause to see violence, to see the harming every day. We create the cause to see one of our sisters get raped every day, but you don't get raped. So that's a different way you're experiencing the karma, Everything is our karmic appearance in that sense. We created the cause to see that. Yes. If you didn't have, you'd never have heard of Hitler. If you had no karma due to negativity, you would never even hear the name Hitler. You'd never have heard of those type of things. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it's difficult to put everything together because I still think the way I am now in this particular moment is just a combination of so many things, causes, conditions, and this time. But it doesn't mean that I have not done all the things in the countless past lives that may ripen tomorrow as meeting Hitler and
they could ripen tomorrow. But that's where. So therefore, the question from that is.
Yeah. Sorry. My question is, are we all responsible for the Hitlers, even if we don't experience it now?
Oh, no, that's not the meaning. No, that is not the meaning. Absolutely not. But if no, now I see you're saying that is not the way karma ripens. No. Like right now let's say you live in a country that like in America, Americans' taxes go to kill people. You cannot say forget even the taxes. No, you cannot say you created Hitler. That's not possible because you didn't. Right now, you've got a pure mind. You don't agree. If you agree with Hitler, then you're creating the cause to continue for that kind of activity. Yeah, if you agree with those views, if you rejoice every day that Hitler's playing out your viewpoints, that's a very close connection you've got. But you don't create Hitler. That's not a possibility. But that's not a possibility. I mean, logically think about it. If there's 4 ways your karma ripens, 1 is the intention to do something, 2 is the experience of having it happen to you, 3 is the environmental result, and 4 is the type of rebirth. Seeing Hitler, you created the cause to see Hitler, to be aware of Hitler, to see rape, to see kindness, to see beauty. I mean, the people who live in Zurich, I remember one Tibetan, I always quote this. I think he lived in Switzerland, and he was asked, what do you think of maybe America, maybe the West or Switzerland? He said, it's so clean and you keep on cleaning it. And I know I've been to Zurich and it's like that. That's like seeing Hitler. You've got the karma due to the particular environment of seeing everything is very beautiful, is not no abusive language, no speech, especially no negative speech of any kind, then you're going to get a beautiful, clean environment. You created that clean environment, yes. Well, you also created the cause if it's going to be Hitlerian environment. You're not creating Hitler. You create the cause to have that experience. You with me?
I am not sure, because at the same time, we have all been each other's mothers. So we do have very close connections.
I know, but so you keep indicating that point, which is not wrong, but karma plays out specifically at each moment of time. There are generalities and then there are specifics. So the generality is you've been born since beginningless time. The generality is you've met beings countless times. You've been Hitler countless times. But specifically now, what is playing out, that's the hands-on, on the earth reality. The garden, your garden has had potential for every plant in the universe. But right now, what's in your garden, that's your business.
Yes, this I understand. So it's difficult for me to put together the generalities and the specifics.
That's often what you do. You get involved in the generalities, and then you make that that's fine to know the generalities. It's good, but the specifics is what matters now, and you deal with that to make sure. You understand? It's a really good point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Keep thinking about it. What else, people?
Robina, we got 3 more questions. If it's okay. So let's see. So we have a question from Kirsten, would you like to, it's quite clear, so I can just read it out for you. So when, for example, I tell the truth and the person doesn't believe me, I just can accept that the person doesn't believe me, and I don't have to get upset and suffer about it.
I understand.
Question.
That's the ideal. Doesn't mean you can't try to, but this is where purification comes in, and we're going to discuss that. So then, and that's a major one. So I think we'll wait, if you can wait for that to come to when purification comes, and we get into the details of how we create karma and then how we can try and solve the problem. We get into the details. That'll all come then, I think. Okay. So keep the question in your mind, and then I'll try and be specific about it. If I forget, remind me.
Okay. The next question is from Katya, and I think it's along the same line. Do we only create karma by applying virtues or non-virtuous action to sentient beings? Or what if we cut a tree? Does that affect our karma as well? We're going to go into how we create karma later. Okay, great. I think we can start it soon, and we'll certainly carry on discussing it next week for sure. Okay, and then that's it. Andrea's question has been answered. Okay, are there any other questions? And just so Janara has a question. Yes, it just came in now. What could be the reason? Would you like to say it yourself?
Hello, Venerable Robina. Hello, everyone. So the question is, sometimes life is changing dramatically. Something happens that triggers like really, 180-degree changes in life, to better or to worse. That's right. So what could be the reasons, as far as the karma ripening?
Yeah, karma runs out. Think of karma like a petrol tank. You put a certain amount of petrol in your tank of your generosity karma, and every day you keep getting a job, you keep getting money, the bank gives you loans, but the petrol runs out one day and suddenly you can't get a job. Suddenly you get stolen from. Karma runs out. That's what impermanence is. So that's really the point. Suddenly one day you're healthy and you're fit, and then the karma of non-killing runs out and suddenly you get cancer. Overnight, you see it. So the way to say it is, the amount of energy you put into your petrol tank is the amount, and that it lasts a certain length of time, then it runs out. That's the best way to put it, darling. Can you see my point? Can you hear that?
I can.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Thank you.
The answer. That's why, this is a very interesting point now. Okay, this is why, let's say, okay, in general, at the time, okay, this is the first point. At the time of death, Dinara, whoever she was, a few weeks before she found her way to her mummy's present human womb, you were in another body. At that time, before you stopped breathing, and it's quite technically described in the death process, you got your form, all your different bank vaults, your main causes so one of your main karmic, main seeds of non-killing was triggered, which caused you, even before you stopped breathing, was already set up and already programmed you to get born to your present mother's human womb. The second bank vault of karmic seeds that were triggered were the seeds that would then produce Dinara's personality, her tendencies. These are already triggered even before you die in the past life, Dinara. The third lot of karmic seeds will be all the seeds that will become Dinara's experiences similar to the cause in this life, how you're seen and treated by others, whether you're lied to, stolen from, whether you're rich or poor. Those karmic seeds were all triggered before you even stopped breathing in the past life. And the fourth lot of karmic seeds, the environmental karmic seeds, the way you now in this life, the way the physical world impacts upon you, whether it's ugly or beautiful, whether it harms you or helps you, all of those seeds. In other words, you were programmed fully well before you even left the previous body, Dinara. Then karma takes care. You die, you go to this intermediate state, you're all programmed. When your mummy and daddy hopped into bed, you ran like a magnet. Now all those seeds that you had planted are now going to play out and become Dinara's life. But it's not a static thing. It's sort of like, all this, you put all these seeds in the ground. Just say you put all the seeds in the ground for the oak trees and the roses and the fruits and the veggies and the weeds and the herbs, but you don't just leave those seeds there, do you? Now, often what happens is we get born with all those seeds ripening. So let's say You know, you're born, you got the karma to be born to a very rich mother. Let's say you got karma to be born to be seen as very beautiful, and people love you and don't lie to you and give you jobs, and everything works so beautifully. So now what happens is we tend to rest on our laurels. Oh, aren't I lucky? Oh, I'm so fortunate. Oh, everybody loves me. I must be a good person. So basically you're not doing any weeding, and you're not doing any pruning, and you're just allowing the seeds to play out. Well, then it'll all run out again. It'll all run out very soon. You'll have no karma left. But that's what happens. We get so caught up in, oh, aren't I lucky? We don't do any pruning or growing more of those seeds. So in this life, if you realize that you've got a good life, good tendencies, good experiences, and good environment, but you know it's due to your past virtuous karma, but if you just don't use it all up, like you've been, you know, another analogy, you see you've got a beautiful garden full of veggies and herbs and flowers. You don't just sit there resting on your laurels going, oh, aren't I lucky? And you eat all the veggies and you pick all the flowers, but you never think that you've got to grow more. Now, if you live your life properly, you appreciate you've got a good life. You know it's the fruit of your past virtue, but you don't just sit on it and think you're lucky. You grow more non-killing karmic seeds, and you grow more non-stealing karmic seeds, and you do lots of practice. Then you'll keep nourishing the present seeds, and you'll keep getting more. And maybe you even extend your life and extend the goodness and extend the riches, because you're nourishing the current seeds that you planted before and helping them continue to grow, and you're growing millions more seeds so that when you do die, they will keep growing. Are you getting my idea here? It's not just static. You don't just sit back and let the seeds all ripen. And then that's the same with when the bad things happen. So when the bad things happen, you don't just sit there, oh, I'm so sad, I'm so bad, I'm so evil, I must have been an evil person. You try to purify it, and you try to even pull out the weeds and the seeds before they ripen badly. So so what we do in this life is based upon the seeds we planted in the past, but we can adjust the garden, and we can change the garden, and we can improve the garden and prune the garden and pull out the weeds and pull out the seeds. That's what daily practice does. You with me, Dinara?
Yes, thank you. But that's only possible if you are aware of the concept of karma.
Precisely, darling. That's the point. Yes, that's the tragedy. Most of us aren't. We just rest on our laurels, or we believe everybody else is the cause. Aren't I lucky, or aren't I unlucky? And we spend our lives pointing to the outside world for the causes. That's the tragedy. The Lamas all say the Bodhisattvas have such compassion for us, not even because we don't realize emptiness, but because we don't realize cause and effect. We don't realize that we're the boss. That's the tragedy. We just waste our lives. That's the tragedy. Do you understand? Yeah.
Thank you.
What else, people?
Yes, Venerable Robina, I got two questions, and I'll read it out. One is from Stephanie. How can we change environmental karma like COVID? Do we all have to do something individually, or we also need to do something together as a society?
I know exactly. I understand. Well, environmental karma seems to be the one that is the most long distant. It's sort of from millions of lifetimes ago, we have environmental karma. The causes for us to have a polluted environment now, of course, the secondary causes are exactly what we see, the carbon, the this, the that, the plastics, all the way we're abusing the environment. That's very clear, but that's the secondary cause. The main cause of why we've got a lousy environment now is from millions of lifetimes ago of collective killing karma. That's the main cause. So to purify environmental karma also takes time. So all we can do is immediately do what we can right now by obeying the rules and wearing our masks and but we've got to also do the purification. So if every day you do your own purification of your own past killing karma, and you try to, and you try to help others, then this is how you can help a little bit. But in the end, to actually change the environmental karma, that's millions of lifetimes, But we do what we can. We do the external things, and we do the internal things about purifying every day. And and that's also why, Lama Zopa, for example, has got us, the Sangha, now the monks and nuns, for several months now. He asked us to do 24 hours a day. Some of you must know this. 24 hours a day, the different FPMT monks and nuns around the world are leading 30-minute or sometimes longer sessions of this particular practice by this Sakya Lama, who is a famous little short text, just a series of aspirations, really. There was some place, some Sakya monastery, I don't know, they don't say when it was, probably a few centuries ago, where there was a plague or something, and nothing would fix it. So this holy yogi comes along and starts doing this, made this prayer and did these aspirations and did prayers to Chenrezig and did the mantra, and it purified it, cured it. So on every Saturday for 24 hours around the world, the FPMT monks and nuns are leading this prayer and in leading this visualization, these mantras. So that's how we can help the world as well. So using the Buddhas is a very powerful way. I mean, Lama Zopa, he's got incredible faith in all these different practices, because many of the sicknesses we do have are environmental, and many can even be caused by spirits and things like that. So that by doing these practices, we can help purify those causes. So there's lots of practices we can do, both personally, but also invoking the Buddhas, using the Buddhas, you know, lots of things we can do to help change. Absolutely. What else?
Yes, one more question.
Putting the practice up there on the chat box is fantastic. Good. Here you go. Go on.
Okay. When one karma runs out, another karma ripens. Is that the cause of impermanence, or is a permanent?
No, not the cause of impermanence, it's the nature of impermanence. Impermanence is a whole other teaching, it's quite extensive, is that everything is continually changing. I mean, karma running out is one example of how things change, but there's subtle impermanence as well, which is that everything changes in its own nature, millisecond by millisecond by millisecond. So there's a subtle way that things are impermanent, but karma is an example of impermanence. Karma runs out is an example of impermanence. You know, things breaking, cups getting old, computers dying. They're also examples of impermanence in the simplest level. But karma, experiences changing, husbands dying, houses burning down, winning the lottery. They're the fruit of karma. But that is just proving impermanence more than anything.
Okay.
That's why if you've got, say, this is why we've got, like I was saying to Dinara, we've got the seeds, we planted the seeds that are now ripening in this life. Our life is the ripening of past seeds, but you don't just sit back, you nourish the good ones and you try to poison the bad ones. So you can shift the karma every day. And that's why lots of practices, for example, they call them doing long life prayers. There are certain practices you can do that could extend your life. You might wring out a few extra years from your virtuous non-killing karma. But if you just let it sit there, karma takes care. And you can even, by doing negative things, you can even speed up the ending of your good karma. So we can also speed up the ripening of our good karma. The more we think of the example of seeds and fruits is a very practical one. That's why they use it all the time, you know. It's very interesting. And of course, the workings of karma are so intricate, are so subtle, that until we're enlightened, we can't see every tiny detail of it. Because if it is a natural law, it can be explained perfectly. It's not a mystery that God is keeping in his pocket, which is how we think about a creator. That's the view of being a Christian or a Muslim, that God has got a plan, and it's not our job to know his plan. That's fine, have faith in God, but that's not Buddha's view. That's not Buddha's view. Everything by definition can be cognized. It's all there for us to learn. And then we're enlightened, we will see it and know it precisely. That's the logic for the Buddha. All we can start with is the basic laws, isn't it? Learn the simple principles of botany before you become a very clever botanist. Start somewhere. So that we'll go into, and not now, we'll go into next week. We'll talk about how we can finish soon. I'm so sorry, I'm just running out of voice these days. Listen to me, you know, it's ridiculous. So we can finish in a second. But next week, we're going to go into the details of how we create karma, all the various components, and then how we purify it, and then vows. These are the three major pieces. These are the components of a really good practice. If we have these, we can be very content, you know. All right, precious ones. Anything else? Will that do for us?
In the chat box, but we would like to chant a long life prayer.
Oh, okay. This is very kind. Thank you so much. You do that. That's wonderful. And I can think of my lamas, and I'll pray for the long life of my lamas. And that's marvelous. Altogether, we've got some karma together. So may we all live long life. May we all live a long life, because the world needs virtue badly. Thinking like this.
Right. Yes. And shall we all unmute ourselves?
Do it. The other way is fine. All say it out loud. It doesn't have to hear. I just thought it'd be nice to hear each other's voice, even though it's bitter. It doesn't matter. Leave it like it is. Do it. Just say it yourselves. Go on. And I'll pray as well for the long life of my lamas as well. Go on. And I'll happily accept it. Thank you. This is written by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Somebody requested, apparently, which is very kind of Rinpoche. He wrote it, yes. Thank you, darlings. Thank you so much.
Talia, would you lead or should I go ahead?
Please go ahead.
All right. If anybody would like to unmute yourself, go ahead as well. And otherwise also you can recite on it. A prayer for the long life of Venerable Robina Cortin, who is fully dedicated, compassionate, devoted, wise, a dynamic female teacher of PMT and all sentient beings in Taiwan. A reign of nectar
extinguishes the contemplation of delusion.
Mother of the
victorious one,
is one of the three times and 10 directions.
Dharmakaya, the great bliss and great compassion. My perfect Aryatara,
who in an ordinary form
are the guide of us great beings, left guideless.
How kind
you are.
May all
May all your
wishes
wishes be
be
instantly fulfilled.
May your life
May your
be
life be
stable
stable until samsara ends. Almighty One, you who destroy all the enemy of delusions,
reveal the dogma of
scriptures
scripture
and
and
realizations,
spreading
spreading in the mental continuum of transmigrating beings, thereby eliminating the two obscurations and putting their imprints. How kind you are. May all your wishes be instantly fulfilled. May your life be stable until samsara ends.
by the
blessing of the Guru, the tide of
Dharma
karmic
protector
chapters,
and
unending actions and their results,
as well as the truth of ultimate reality. In all my lifetimes,
may all peace never displease forever. Second the Guru.
May all the
May all the vital points of my praise be fulfilled.
Venerable, you are muted. We cannot hear you.
I lost you for a while. Now I found you. Thank you, people. Thank you, sweethearts. So think about what we've talked about today. Just try and nut it all out. The generalities and the specifics, like Alessia said. But and then we'll go into more details next week and try and get it down to earth, okay? And keep remembering it's not punishment and reward. This is the biggest one. That's you see, and don't blame your Jewish mother or your Catholic mother for that. The concept of the dualistic concept of blame and reward, of punishment and reward, of I'm bad or you're bad, guilt and anger, that dualistic view is the result of the root delusion, ego grasping. It's actually in our minds. We get born with it. So we have to consciously unpack that view. This is why the idea of cause and effect is one of the most marvelous logics to prove dependent. It's the most marvelous example of dependent arising, which is the point that Alessia is pointing out, which then helps us understand emptiness, that there's no intrinsic nature. So it's a very marvelous teaching, actually. And it is the basis of Buddha's teachings. Without karma, Buddhism is a load of rubbish, you know. So really to think about it and try to get past the typical one of blame, punishment, I'm the blame, that kind of thing. When we also, the other crucial point, because at the first level of practice, we're talking about how to stop suffering. By implication, we're talking about how to get happy. So when we start to really practice thinking about karma in terms of the good things that happen, it should bliss us out, but we only think of the bad. This is a terrible irony of ego, you know. If you look at your daily life and realize that, you know, any thought that arises in your mind that's virtuous, this is unbelievable. Anything that good happens to you, even if you have one person who is kind to you, one person who gives you a gift, $1 in the bank, do never take this for granted. All the good things that we have that happen to us, this is the fruit of our past virtue. This should bliss us out. But the irony, the tragedy of ego is we are addicted to the negative. Our ego runs to the negative. It's kind of ironic. So we've got to consciously practice actively thinking, looking at all the good things, not just holy, oh, aren't I lucky, not like that, but rejoicing and delighting, you know, in the good things, because we created those as well. That's what's so powerful. Can't stress that enough, you know. So we rejoice. And then we meet each other again next week. And I'll try not to be late next week. I'm sorry. So Talia, you have to remind me. Thank you, darling.
And also tomorrow.
So just we dedicate in our own words. Don't put the prayers up. Just think all these seeds we planted, this 2 hours, you know, as many moments as there have been is as many seeds we planted. So we think we're going to nourish these seeds from this second forward with our own virtue, our goodness, with our efforts, you know, so we can never stop developing our marvelous potential, so we can never stop benefiting sentient beings, and may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. That's it. Thank you, precious ones, so much. Much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Robina. Thank you, Talia.